Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media. The time is 9:55. We're going to be having a very, very interesting conversation right now with the Executive Director and the Head of Research for Money, Banking and Macroeconomics at Firstsource Money. We'll be speaking to Redge Nkosi. I'm sure it was all over the news, and you might have seen it yesterday, that Shell has confirmed plans to exit South Africa after more than 120 years of operation. In a statement issued on Monday afternoon, the oil major said it had decided to divest its majority shareholding from a local South African downstream unit following a comprehensive review of its downstream and renewable business across all regions. And we are joined by Redge Nkosi right now via the telephone. Redge, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Salam Media.
Thanks very much for having me.
First and foremost, I think to many South Africans, these might sound like big, macroeconomic terms that are a bit difficult to wrap your head around. But if you can simplify it, Shell, after 120 years in the country, why are they packing up and leaving?
Yeah, well, there's been quite a number of guesses about that. One of it is that, well, our economic situation is deteriorating, therefore they have to leave. The others is political, and so on and so forth. But let us put this thing in its appropriate context. Firstly, Shell is an energy company. As you said already, it has been here for all those years. And at all times, like any other company, they evaluate their position in all the markets they have. South Africa is just one of those markets. But also, times are changing. Shell itself is changing. In our view, Shell is moving or beginning to embrace the new climate issues that are coming up, environmental issues, so they're changing, and indeed, as they should change. So they are moving out not because South Africa is a very bad place to be, as in fact most people seem to say. It's essentially a decision made a while back, not just now. First, remember also that in Durban they have suppressed together with BP, and that they stopped a while back. This is not in South Africa only. In Singapore, they did the same thing. And they're moving out of South Africa today, not because of political issues, it's because they're doing so globally, apart from one economy, which is the US. In Malaysia, they're doing the same thing. So I think that is the starting point before we begin to blame ourselves. Of course, we don't want to lose any company, do we? We don't. But I think these are the realities that we're facing, and it's a global issue, a global decision. I think it's good for Shell. It should also be good for South Africa, you may wonder, but how? Because if Shell is a foreign company, all the investment that has done in here, money goes back home. So it continually sucks money from citizens, and whoever is going to press Shell, assuming it's a South African company, then money will be within the economy. It's going to be money for us, all South Africans.
I think, for me, you did mention that there's a number of factors that Shell is packing up in, divesting from South Africa. But one that always seems to pop out when you read about the story is, that there's possibly a fallout with their BE partners, which is apparently has ties with the ANC. And a lot of people saying, we've been, talking about BEE and its implications, and how sooner or later they are going to be, biting us in our behinds, so to say. How true is this? Is the BEE and its requirements one of the reasons why there was that fallout between Shell and them ultimately deciding that they won't be working in South Africa anymore?
Well, I think there's some merit, I suppose, from the argument that the BEE issues are in a way impinging on investment in the country, and therefore countries begin to be very reluctant to partner with the citizens. But let's remember how Singapore developed. Any company that went to Singapore had to ensure that 50% of that investment is owned by Singaporeans. That has been the practice for Singapore all these years. And who went out? No one went out. But this is happening in Botswana as well. De Beers, which is obviously a South African company, has a 50% shareholding with the Botswana government. So some money doesn't go to the BS itself, it goes to Botswana. So this practice, this notion that BEE is destructive is in fact one of those statements echoed by a number of people who do not want the black majority to benefit from the economy, but also to own the economy. Remember, an economy owned by foreigners is an economy owned by foreigners, and money goes to their country. So I think this story of BEE being so bad is certainly not true in my view, and should be rejected as it is, because in so many countries these rules apply.
You spoke a bit about how this might be a blessing in disguise. When Shell, a foreign-owned company leaves, what opportunities are there, to try and, make sure that that part of the economy, that part of that very, very big, successful business and its operations, in some way or the other comes back to the hands of South Africans, we don't see money leaving our shores like you previously mentioned?
Absolutely, an important question indeed. As we know, they just don't take away the dividends; they take away so many other things. Of course, the exportation of some of the energy products that Shell has been producing, we're leaving South Africa to some other countries and benefiting us. So if Shell divests as it is now divesting, I think the strategy here should be one where all that divestment must necessarily fall into the hands of the South Africans. And to that, therefore, the economy will be able to grow, because remember, the economy can't grow properly when you invest money and then take that money out. So if money is fully invested in the economy and circulates in the economy, there's a great deal of hope in terms of growing the economy. So therefore, we should in fact encourage that. Many people have encouraged that foreign that has been 40% foreign owned is now 25% foreign owned. It's positive, because then it helps us reduce the exposure we have in terms of foreign exchange and so on and so forth. So our reserves will also therefore go up as a consequence of Shell having to divest and South Africans owning Shell here.
And you did mention that this is not a new phenomenon, and these big multinationals are embracing the new world, the future, so to say. Is there chances or other examples that you see happening? Other companies, other multinationals also reviewing their investments in African countries, particularly South Africa, and also maybe choosing to leave? And what sort of implications on a broader scale would this have, as much as there are opportunities, as you mentioned?
Yes, actually, we don't want investment to leave out of the country. I think what we want is certainly bigger ownership by the citizens, as I said, just to prevent excessive outflow of money. Now, we have seen Anglo American, which is essentially a South African company, even if now it's listed in London, it's no longer South African, through BHP Billiton, wanting to pull out of South Africa. They don't want the South African market, and quite a few others have been getting at that. But in case of BHP Billiton, remember BHP Billiton itself is partly South African. If you remember Genco, a mining company called Genco, formed part of the Billiton. Now they want to pull out. I mean, that frankly is not very good for us. But again, the silver lining is there. The idea is that to accept that some markets are getting difficult to operate, margins are getting smaller and smaller for reasons known to the operators of industries, and then they have to pull out. I mean, it's a business decision. It may not eventually be a political decision. It becomes a business decision. So, yeah, it's not very good that we should be having companies leave the show. But I think for South Africa, the strategy is to embrace the opposite, where money will remain in the country for those of us who are going to own, say, the Anglo shares or Anglo mining interests in the country, and that money will therefore begin to develop South Africans instead of developing Europeans, like now, as Anglo is doing.
And just lastly, my question to you is, you speak, very passionately about, Africans, South Africans, seeing opportunities in, instances like this where you have multinationals leave, and trying to, use that infrastructure and, basically take back, in a way, the large part of the monies that we're leaving our shores. But then again, I want to ask, how do you strike a balance between doing that and also securing jobs? We know that South Africa is one of the highest unemployment, rates in the world. I'm not sure how many thousands of people in South Africa does Shell employ, but I'm pretty sure there are going to be ramifications for them. So how do you, strike that balancing act between the two?
I think that's very important as well. Certainly, I think as an economy, we have to ensure that we strike a balance between losing jobs and getting companies leave our shores. But in the case of Shell, for example, or even in the case of BHP Billiton, Anglo American, and others, when they leave here, it doesn't necessarily mean the company has actually completely gone out. It has simply been replaced by a South African. Therefore, the job prospects will continue. All right? In that instance, I don't think we should worry so much. We should worry for the companies that completely close shop and leave our shores. In this case, Anglo will still be mining in South Africa. Shell, its products will still be sold in South Africa, and they will still remain in South Africa. Remember, what they're divesting from is the downstream sector. They have an upstream sector. I think they're still here in South Africa on the upstream side. So I think in terms of jobs, we are safe there. But should there be any company foreign that divests completely without a replacement here, then frankly, the job issue must necessarily come into play. And we cannot allow that to be happening.
All right. Redge Nkosi, thank you so much for unpacking, this to us. I think, you just laid it out as simply as possible for, the ordinary South Africans to understand, what this divestment from Shell means and the implications that is going to have on South Africans. I think we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That was Redge Nkosi there. He's the executive director and head of research for money, banking, and macroeconomics at Firstsource Money. Just giving us insight on some of the ramifications of Shell divesting its downstream operations in South Africa after more than 120 years in the country and in the petroleum industry. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be having the news with Zai Jedward. What's Salam Media News? What you need to know, what you need to know, and how you need to know it right after this.